Shelter 2 is bad. It had one job, and it failed.
I will make them pay for what they've done.
It has a great art style and pretty music, but sadly that's all this game is. Pretty visuals and decent music. This is a bigger failure than LA Noire. And if you're the kind of person who thinks LA Noire was a good game, then I highly recommend Street Cleaning Simulator. You clearly love great storytelling and in-depth characters. But most importantly, you enjoy walking back and forth over the same area in order to progress the game. So why is Shelter 2 bad? Well, it'll take a bit to explain, because the answer is basically that it fails at being an art game. And no, being an art game doesn't have much to do with the visuals or that it's short. I have no idea why people like this game.
This is a Plastic Nights video, reviewing games that came out a long time ago. This video contains spoilers. You have been warned.
So, what is this game? Shelter was Might and Delight's 2013 title, a game where you play as a mother badger as she tries to keep her babies alive. It was met with some critical success, though it certainly had some people who were unhappy with the final product. 2 years later, Might and Delight released their cleverly titled Shelter 2, where you play as a mama lynx, as she tries to keep her cubs alive for 2 in-game years. Oh, that sounds pretty cool, you might say. And yeah, that does sound pretty cool. But this game has reverse Battlestar Galactica syndrome. See, whenever you try to explain Battlestar Galactica to somebody who hasn't seen the show, it sounds horrible. Yet it's arguably one of the best science fiction shows ever. Shelter 2 sounds really good when you explain it. Well, until the finer details get fleshed out.
They're like the opposite.
You see, the only thing you do in this game is run around the map killing things in order for your cubs to eat. There is almost nothing else in terms of gameplay. Sure, you can walk your babies down to the watering hole in order to up your stamina bar, or you can explore the map in order to find other creatures to hunt. There are some reasons for why you'll explore, but I'll get to them a little later. First, let's talk about what this game does mostly well. First, this game is beautiful. The art style is very creative, making everything look like a quilt. The music is pretty good too. It's really melancholic, and tries its best to keep up with the emotional tone of the game. I say it tries because it doesn't do that all the time. What else did I like about this game? I liked when it was over. What is an art game? An art game is a game that prioritizes meaning and theme over other aspects we commonly find in games. It's not to say that non-art games aren't trying to convey meaning. It's just to say that art games often don't include mechanics and features that are typically intended to broaden the game's appeal, which, incidentally, often muddies the intended meaning. For example, take Grand Theft Auto 4. That is a game that is about a jaded war veteran, trying to come to terms with his violent past, which is complicated by his new environment and the relationships he makes throughout the game, all of which offer new financial opportunities, usually with the consequence of more violence and regret. It's about the soulful search of a broken man to find meaning and comfort in a cruel and meaningless world. But it's also about driving a taxi, or pretending to be someone's boyfriend, or going on a shooting spree and a high-speed chase, before beating a prostitute to death, and bowling. See how the ultimate meaning gets muddied by all this extra stuff? not to mention the ludonarrative dissonance that occurs within the universe. Art games, on the other hand, are built to convey meaning through simplified gameplay and tight mechanics, all in service to create emotional experiences in targeted ways. One of the most typical features of art games is that they rarely lock players out of continued narrative experience, simply because the player's skill level is too low. In other words, the gameplay is usually set up in such a way that you won't be punished because of its squishy controls, or because of an unfair boss battle, or even because you've never played a game before. Art games don't want you to lose, even though losing is often the stick that drives tension in games. Instead, art games want you to experience something. In order to feel that something, they provide you the tools to guide you to that experience. So what's wrong with this game? Hunting. It's the core mechanic of this game, and it isn't fleshed out or targeted enough to feel satisfying. Now, there are some other features in the game, like enemies, exploration, whatever the f this is, but hunting is a thing you will do no matter what else you're doing. Because there aren't any health bars or any real indication that your children need food, you are constantly trying to find and hunt food for them. This means you really want to keep hunting food every couple minutes. This mechanic, added to the fact that you have a limited stamina bar that regenerates up to a certain point unless you eat or drink water, means that you are in for a constant stream of stress with almost no respite, and it feels really artificial.
Your last chance. If the needle goes beyond here, you will be fired. Does that make you feel stressed? Jay, does it? No? Are you sure? 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 Are you sure?
Even when your children get older, they don't help you hunt, and you don't teach them how to hunt. So this is really more of a creature hunting creature simulator, but the controls aren't tight enough for it to be very good at that either. In fact, the controls and the bugs in this game just make it even less enjoyable than it already is.
I will make them pay for what they've done.
There are 3 major map areas in the base game. These areas are really big, and the landscapes are pretty varied. And there are seasons. Now you might be thinking, oh, so food in one spot of the map will get scarce, forcing you to migrate to another, right?
Nope.
Well, I found an abundance of food in the starting area, and returned there in a different season to find about the same amount of food. It's not the reason I left the starting area for a time. No, the reason I left? Boredom. Since hunting doesn't carry this game, let's get to the crux of what's really wrong with it. Hunting for food, while a very important aspect of being a parent, is not the only thing that defines motherhood. This game had one job: let me care about my kids. Games that have NPCs usually give us the tools to become friends with them over the time of play. Through gameplay, we become friends with Garrus, Clementine, Dogmeat, just to name a few. While talking was an important aspect of developing those digital friendships, their usefulness to us, their personalities, and the experiences we have together go into the reasons for why they are memorable and why it was sad when. So in a game that is supposed to target the emotional feelings inherent to the arc of motherhood, you would think there'd be more to this game than just food gathering. And when you add that the controls are pretty shit, usually for no reason, the act of hunting becomes frustrating, and the cubs become a burden instead of these characters, however rudimentary, that you can care about. Let's not forget, art games have made shapes characters. You simply can't do anything with your cubs. There's no playing with them, teaching them to hunt. There's just you hunting and waiting for them to finish eating. This is a huge wasted opportunity, as this game is really attempting to elicit an emotional reaction out of the player. But constantly hunting creates this artificial tension that feels really out of place and unjustified. You see, your cubs can die, run away, if you don't feed them enough. So constantly feeding them over fostering a relationship is what this game is actually about. Meaning that dating simulators are more effective at conveying nurturing relationships and attachment than Shelter 2. Your cubs grow up and the game culminates in this scene, which is the biggest emotional experience the game has to offer, while simultaneously highlighting everything that's wrong with the game itself. The cubs have grown up, and now they are going to leave their mother. They say goodbye with their looks, and then they run off into the distance, leaving you alone. It made me think about how parents might feel when their children grow up. Almost happy that those little shits aren't my problem anymore. I didn't feel bad that these cubs were leaving. I only vaguely thought about what this was intended to represent. The game never let me develop a relationship with the cubs, and then expected this scene to be impactful. This game failed to convey the meaning of motherhood through play. This game failed. Even the music in this scene felt like it couldn't be bothered. Here, let's fix it real quick. It's pretty clear this was supposed to be a real emotional moment in the game, like everything built up to this point. But instead of building an epic emotional tower of loss, parenthood, and ultimate loneliness, they built a tower of below average and it looks pretty. This game was so shit at connecting me to these cubs that I didn't feel anything when they left. You see, when Arius dies in the Final Fantasy game, there's some really deep emotional hurt there. If/when Garrus, Clementine, or Dogmeat die in the middle or end of their respective games, or if they were to just up and leave because they outgrew you, that would be pretty devastating because you built those relationships and experiences together. But what do you feel when a villager in Minecraft dies? Yeah. This game needed a lot more to do in order to foster feelings for my cubs. You see, while this game is busy stressing me out over whether or not I can get another meal for them before the wonky controls get bad, the cubs should have been what I look forward to. The respite from the daily activities, the end of day screen, the Firelink shrine if you will. But instead, they just made weird noises and I moved on to finding another rabbit to kill. This game skates on the fact that its visual aesthetics makes it look artsy, and the cubs make cute noises. I guarantee you, if this game didn't have its visual style, its Metacritic score would be a lot lower. It really feels like this game's pitch began and ended with its art style, and that's a true shame. This game ultimately fails because it lacks the mechanics necessary to feel like a Mother Lynx. Now, yes, there's another true ending that is almost good, but it definitely doesn't outweigh the 2 hours it takes to get there. I really wanted to like this game. So it was a conversation I had with a friend back in the day, when the discussion of diversity in gaming was just starting to get mainstream. We talked about how most games are the same, and that the reason for that is because developers don't read very much outside of their comfort zone of military fiction, science fiction, and Tolkien-inspired fantasy. I stated that I wanted a game about a mother who had to protect her child as they marched through a war-torn area, or something to that effect. After many years, I finally got something like that, and it was terrible. And then this game came out, and it was even worse.